Hello everyone, I'm Chromaki. I highly recommend subscribing to my channel, because what I am going to tell you, you will not see on any other channel. If this is your first time on my channel, then today you are very lucky. Today I solemnly open a new section on my channel, titled, Career Death. In this section I will tell you about that, how the careers of once famous and highly paid actors have sunk to the bottom, and some of them ended their film careers and retired. I'll also tell you about those actors who buried their careers in big cinema long ago, but they still try to act in films. The truth is in a category of films that is not entirely clear. Make yourself comfortable. We're starting. Well, our first lucky winner will be Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage is one of the most controversial stars in Hollywood. He is admired and at the same time mercilessly criticized. Nicolas Cage has starred in more than 100 films, many of which were not successful, and they only secured for him the title of the most controversial and strange actor of our time. Nicolas Cage's career as an actor began back in 1981, and it's hard to believe, but from that moment on, he acts in something every year, and sometimes in several films at once. Nothing stops this man, neither critical reviews, nor audience ratings, nor box office failures of many films. Even a nomination for the Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Actor does not stop Nicolas Cage, of which Nicolas Cage has as many as 6 pieces. Nicolas Cage is constantly experimenting and changing the roles of his heroes. He has starred in dramas, action films, superhero films, comedies, and even horror films. In the 1990s, Nicolas Cage's first debut as a famous actor was the film Leaving Las Vegas, which, with a budget of $4 million, collected $32 million, which is very good for a film of that time, with an 18+ rating. After Las Vegas, Nicolas Cage had success with 3 action films in a row. The first action film was the film The Rock, directed by Michael Bay, where Nicolas Cage looked pretty good paired with Sean Connery. And again the movie with Nicolas Cage was a success, and with its $75 million budget, the film grossed $335 million, and Nicolas Cage received as much as $4 million for it. Simon West directed a cool film, Con Air, where Nicolas Cage also gave a great performance. And the success of Nicolas Cage in action films was consolidated by director John Woo, who directed the film Face Off, where Nicolas Cage and John Travolta actually played each other. For the film Face Off, Nicolas Cage received as much as $6 million. True, John Travolta is a little more, only $20 million. Blah. But at that time, John Travolta was at the peak of his popularity. In early 2000, Nicolas Cage also started off very well. For his role in the film Gone in 60 Seconds, Nicolas Cage received $20 million, which couldn't help but make him happy, because at that time it was his biggest fee.
Okay, let's run.
The career of the many famous actor Nicolas Cage began to stagnate in the second half of 2000. Many of the actor's expensive films began to flop at the box office. Movies like Bangkok Dangerous, Lord of War, The Wicker Man, or the movie Next. However, Nicolas Cage still had box office successes. In 2007, the sequel to the film National Treasure performed well in cinemas. And in 2009, the film Knowing, directed by Alex Proyas, also performed well. 2010 was a turning point for Nicolas Cage. This is the last time he has had a blockbuster budget at his disposal. The Sorcerer's Apprentice was entirely Nicolas Cage's project. It was he who came up with the idea for the film. After the crazy successes of the films The Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, all Hollywood studios rushed to search for some fantasy books, which could be turned into profitable franchises. True, almost all of these attempts were unsuccessful. However, Nicolas Cage did not know about this, or he just pretended not to notice. Nicolas Cage, with his idea that magic exists, came to see my friend producer Jerry Bruckheimer, who in those years was the most important and highest-grossing producer in Hollywood. Bruckheimer and Cage worked together many times before 2010. Their films The Rock, Con Air, Gone in 60 Seconds, and National Treasure became box office hits. Only in 2009 did their joint film fail. In cinemas, Darwin's Mission performed mediocrely, but it's unlikely that Nicolas Cage, who voiced the guinea pig, can be blamed for the failure of this film. since Jerry Bruckheimer's weight, in the wake of the crazy success of the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy, was very impressive. He easily found a budget of $150 million at the Disney studio for the idea of Nicolas Cage. After all, Nicolas Cage was still considered a big star, even if it's already a little shabby. Cage and Bruckheimer's plans were monumental. The film The Sorcerer's Apprentice was immediately planned to be turned into a trilogy. There was even a full-length cartoon planned in the film's universe. It should be noted here that the Disney studio is after the pirate franchise, namely, the first 3 parts of the film, which grossed almost $3 billion at the box office, invested money in Bruckheimer, not particularly interested in where it would be spent. After all, in Hollywood they believed that Jerry Bruckheimer was the goose that lays the golden eggs. All this will ultimately lead to a chain of failures and a breakdown in relations between the studio and the producer of the Lone Ranger film. And Jerry Bruckheimer's first impressive failure at the Disney studio would be the film The Sorcerer's Apprentice with Nicolas Cage. The extravagance of funds on the set of the film The Sorcerer's Apprentice was enormous. Jerry Bruckheimer and Nicolas Cage received the largest fees for themselves in those years. After the film The Sorcerer's Apprentice, neither one nor the other ever earned that much again. During the production of the film The Sorcerer's Apprentice, Nicolas Cage tried to try on the man of the orchestra costume. He participated in writing the film's script, worked part-time as a producer, sat in the editing room, and personally looked for fashionable pants for his hero at sales. But if Jean-Claude Van Damme was at the peak of his career, it was possible to take on several positions at once, and as a result to save problematic films. At the end of Cage's career, this trick didn't work. The film didn't work out, but it didn't work out more accurately, according to test screenings and the Disney studio. After the first screening, almost 30 minutes were removed from the film. All this exploration of the mystical world, which Nicolas Cage was so interested in, remained somewhere behind the scenes. The failure was very serious. At the American box office, The Sorcerer's Apprentice earned only $63 million. The rest of the world gave another $152 million. But all this did not allow even the production budget of the film to be repaid. Next to Nicolas Cage in cinemas were 2 box office monsters, namely, the cartoons Despicable Me and Toy Story 3. The well-performing film The Karate Kid, in which Jackie Chan starred, has not yet left the top 10. Moreover, Nicolas Cage opened in theaters on the same day as the film Inception, directed by Christopher Nolan, a premiere that clearly attracted an older audience, which, in theory, could go to a new children's film. This is truly an excuse for the poor. During the summer months, the American box office is always crowded, and all these films also competed with each other, and only Nicolas Cage failed. In general, the film The Sorcerer's Apprentice became one of the main losers of the 2010 summer season. Nicolas Cage's career as a big star ended immediately. The actor lost a couple of lucrative contracts, and the budget for Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance was quickly cut by $43 million. And if the first film was a blockbuster according to its budget, then the sequel became a film from a different budget category. Immediately after The Sorcerer's Apprentice, Nicolas Cage consolidated his success with 4 more failures in a row. The films Drive Angry, Seeking Justice, The Frozen Ground, and the film Trespass sank at the box office. Well, in 2012, Ghost Rider 2 performed mediocre at the box office, after which, in general, Nicolas Cage's career ended, and he began acting in films, which can hardly be called films. The actor now doesn't look the same as before, and now it's frankly painful to look at him. But thanks to his fighting youth, Nicolas Cage manages to star in 6, 7, and sometimes even 8 films a year. What he gets for them, of course, is not at all the money that he was paid in the 90s and 2000, but they probably allow you to repay debts. Over the past 10 years, the only bright spot in Nicolas Cage's career can be called the film Kick-Ass, where he played the father of a killer played by Chloe Grace. And no matter how this film is criticized, it is one of the few films of the last 10 years in which Nicolas Cage looks laconically. Otherwise, the work of Nicolas Cage in voice acting for cartoons can be called a success. Namely, the cartoons The Croods and Spider-Man: Into the Spider-Verse. Otherwise, Nicolas Cage stars in little-known projects, little-known directors, and it's not even about Cage's acting but about the plot of these films. Some of these films were not made for mass audiences, and a complete arthuse that is designed for a specific viewer. But for me personally, it's funny and sad to see how a once successful actor who has starred in more than one cult film now plays in second-rate work like the film Jiu-Jitsu Battle for the Ground.
The spaceman. He comes here looking for a fight with you. The chosen jiu-jitsu.
The title of the movie is definitely cool. So is the box office of this film, which amounted to less than $100,000 with a budget of $25 million. According to ratings and viewer ratings, this is the worst film of Nicolas Cage's career. He had never fallen so low before. The whole film looks as cheap and clumsy as possible. Moreover, Nicolas Cage is not even in the leading roles here. He plays some jiu-jitsu master who lives on the outskirts of the world and appears 40 minutes after the start of the film. The quality of the film is evidenced at least by the fact that during the fight scenes with Nicolas Cage, it was obvious and noticeable that instead of Nicolas Cage, another person was fighting there. Nicolas Cage's character in this film is something like Silverhand from the game Cyberpunk 2077, and this can be said to be a dramatic role, albeit the worst of his career. His character in the film even dies, and to be honest, Nicolas Cage is the only one who even plays well in this film. But this did not affect the final result in any way, and the film deservedly has such a low rating. This is truly the worst film starring Nicolas Cage. One of Nicolas Cage's recent works was the film Renfield, which was released in 2023. This is a film about Count Dracula's servant, where the role of Dracula went to Nicolas Cage. The film Renfield was also a box office failure. However, Nicolas Cage was the only bright spot in this film. However, there is still hope for the legendary return of good old Nicolas Cage to big cinema. But the success of the film The Sorcerer's Apprentice could have saved the career of Nicolas Cage. If only the film could make back its budget and go into profit, and the studio launched a sequel to the film. It is unlikely that Nicolas Cage would have ended up in films of an incomprehensible category so quickly. Or maybe didn't get there at all. So let's wish him good luck. Since I have a new channel, I highly recommend that you like and subscribe to the channel to please me, and, what is also important, do not miss the release of new videos. So that's all for now. Thank you for watching. Bye everyone.